Hey friends, welcome back to Ball Homestead. Today is all about bread. We're going to make some beautiful loaf bread today. We're going to start out with 2 cups of warm water. To that, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of yeast. I buy my yeast in bulk from Sam's Club. I keep it in a mason jar in the fridge and it keeps it nice and fresh. Next, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar. You can substitute honey here. This recipe is pretty forgiving. And on this day, it was really early in the morning, friends, so I just went with sugar. But I will at some point try honey. Just give that a quick mix. And we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Along with 2 tablespoons of oil of your choice. On this day, I chose canola oil because that's what I had handy. Just going to mix all that together for a minute. Now we're going to remove our attachment because we're going to sift all of our flour, and this makes it so much easier not having that attachment in the way. We're going to start out by adding 4 cups of flour to this recipe. The recipe says 4 to 5.5 cups. We're going to start out with 4 and see what that gets us. Takes me a minute to get a rhythm here, but friends, it's really early in the morning. I usually am up by 1 a.m., so you can imagine what my sleep schedule is like even on the weekends. I probably drive my husband crazy. We're going to get our last cup of our 4 cups put in here. And then we're going to put our attachment back on and give this a good mix. And we'll see where we're at, if we need more flour or not. As you can tell, we definitely need more flour. The dough is far too wet. So we're going to remove this attachment and we're going to go ahead and add another 1.5 cups of flour. We want our dough to form into a nice ball. I catch myself, but I got in the rhythm of putting a cup in every time, and I did on this last that should have been a 1/2 cup, but I do catch myself. Now we're just going to put our attachment back on and mix that other 1.5 cups of flour in our dough. All right, friends, our dough has formed into a nice ball here. We're going to get our mat ready. I use a silicone mat for kneading my doughs and stuff. I believe I got it on Amazon. It wasn't expensive or anything, but friends, This thing is a game changer. It is so handy. You can just roll it up, take it to the trash can. You don't have to mess up a whole bunch of stuff. And its storage for it is so easy. You can just roll it up or fold it up or whatever. It's I think all the time, where was this thing all my life? It's so wonderful. I love my silicone mat. I use it every single time that I make bread of any kind, rolls or anything. All right, here we're just going to give this dough a little bit of kneading. This is a really soft dough, and you don't have to work it very much. Just knead it a little bit. We're going to form this dough into a nice ball. And then we're going to put it in a well-oiled bowl. Be sure and, coat your bowl with oil because it will stick. Now we're just going to cover our bowl up, and we're going to set it for about an hour to an hour and a half, or until it doubles in size. All right, friends, our dough has doubled in size. It's time for us to make our loaves. We have 2 loaves in this recipe, so we're going to cut this dough in half. Now, the way I like to do it is I just flatten my dough out and kind of roll it up into a loaf. You can do it however you like. That's just how I do it. I just roll it up into a tight roll here and make my little loaves. Now, this is for a regular size loaf pan. Just going to do the same thing with this one. Roll it up as tight as we can get it, form it into our loaf, and put it in our well-greased pan. They're going to have to double again in size. Now I just cover this with a little plastic wrap. I do end up taking it off before the dough is completely risen because I didn't want them to stick. Look at our beautiful dough. Here I have made a second batch of dough because the recipe says you can freeze this dough and then later lay it out for around 5 hours in your loaf pan and then bake, and it'll be just as good as homemade, from right then. So we're going to give that a try in another episode, but I wanted to get some dough put in the freezer so we would have that option. Friends, if this works, it's going to be a game changer. I can make up lots of bread, have it in the freezer, and not have to go dirty my kitchen up every time I want to make bread. I can just go to the freezer, grab a loaf, set it out. Easy peasy. As you can see, I need a little more flour on my mat, and it takes me a minute to do it. I don't know what I was thinking. We're just going to form our loaves. We're going to get some plastic wrap and wrap both these loaves up on. and up in and get them on a cookie sheet and get them into the freezer. I thought it would be handy to try though, because if this works, friends, it's going to be so wonderful to just grab a loaf out of the freezer and let it rise. It'll save so much time. I can just take a day and make a bunch of these loaves up, and it'll really be nice. All right, friends, these loaves are off to freezer camp. Look at our two beautiful loaves of fresh baked homemade bread coming out of the oven. Friends, our house smells amazing. Now we're just going to butter the tops. And we're going to give them about 5 minutes, and then we're going to plop them out on a cooling rack. That way they can cool all the way around. Before we cut this bread, we want to let it set for a couple hours. We want it to be good and cool before we slice it, because we're wanting sandwich bread here, friends. Didn't it turn out beautiful? All right, now we're going to slice up our beautiful bread here. Look at that pretty bread. It is delicious too. Nothing like homemade bread, friends. Nothing like it. Just going to get that loaf sliced up. To me, it even looked like store-bought bread. Look at that gorgeous bread, friends. Now this next morning, we decided to take the sliced bread and make some homemade French toast. With our farm fresh eggs and milk there, I'm adding some cinnamon and some of our homemade vanilla. We're just going to mix all that together. Then we're going to dip our bread and soak it for just a minute on each side and put it in our hot roaster pan I've got going over on the side with some butter in it. Here we've got our French toast cooking. We're just going to brown that on both sides. Got some of our yummy goat butter in the bottom there. So all this pretty much came from the homestead, friends, and that always makes me happy. I love this roaster pan. I use it for so many things. Just going to give each piece a flip and brown each side. Look at our beautiful homemade bread made into French toast. It was super delicious. Wayne really liked this one too.